you so much for coming to this talk with the Hub.Earth, which is myself, Humaira, Ikram.
And I'm Darryl Moore.
And we're in conversation with Cleve West here about his book, The Garden of Vegan. And this event is in conjunction with the Grow Urban London, which have got loads of other events on this week and till next weekend. And also, obviously, National Park City. Thanks so much for having us. Let's come and hang out here. So, Cleve, do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah, I've just put some slides together, just give you a bit of background how I became vegan, and don't worry, it's not going to be any slaughterhouse footage, so you don't have to worry about that. But I was very fortunate enough to. I'm part of quite a big vegan family. Most of my vegan friends are really jealous because this is like a Christmas. We don't even have to talk about being vegan. We're all vegan, and it's just lovely. But when I first met Christine, my wife, I used to eat meat and dairy, and Joanna here on the front and the right, she was vegan since she was 13, so she had quite an influence. She brought her children up vegan, and then it was only when Otto, who's at the back on the right with the blonde hair, he went vegan at the age of 12, just on his own, and it brought us all up with a bit of a start. And so I thought, oh, look into this, and my initial look at it was from a health point of view, a selfish point of view. And I thought, actually, it sounds pretty good for health reasons. So I started, I said, right, we're going to join. And we sort of supported him in his action to become vegan. We thought we'd give it a try. And literally within about 2 or 3 weeks, I felt better. I sort of felt different. I wouldn't say like felt completely better, but I just felt much lighter after eating meals, just had more energy. And I thought, yeah, I can do this. This is something I saw subsequently, but before that there was a film called What the Health, which I saw, and sort of cemented the idea that plant-based diet was actually a really, really good way to go. But then I started looking into all the other aspects, and I saw a film called Earthlings, which is the first one I saw, Cowspiracy, which is about the environment. And then these two videos came up a bit later about the animal agriculture industry. And I remember just being absolutely shocked to the core. I was in my office, and from what I saw, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, why is not everyone vegan after seeing that? Because I used to be quite a big meater up until about my mid-20s before I became vegetarian. I had no clue about what's going on. The one thing that really shocked me to the core was the dairy industry, because we're sort of brought up and conditioned to the idea that meat, dairy, and eggs is all natural, normal, and good for you and everything. But it's the complete opposite, and that's a short 5-minute video, and I sort of swear that if you can't go vegan after that, you probably never go vegan, because that's all the information you need in 5 minutes. So I was sort of head in my hands for about a month. I just couldn't operate. I kept thinking about what to do. I started looking at all the messaging that's going on around you, all these things that are bombarding you, the fact that it's okay to eat and kill all these animals because we treat them really nicely, and we give them a humane slaughter, which is an oxymoron. But this picture on the top right, really, I couldn't believe it. Pig slicing himself in half with a smiley face. And then, this is like now at the supermarket. I'm always taking pictures at supermarkets at the checkout because, these people are banging on all these severed limbs and carcasses and stuff, and all these labels to say, no, it's fine, everything's smiling, it's still fine, we rear everything lovely. So that's quite a learning curve for me. And so, it doesn't matter how an animal is raised, they all end up in the same place. So that's the big take of that. So this is the point where I sort of lost it completely. I thought, right, I've got to do something. So I decided to join a local activist group and stand outside slaughterhouses trying to raise awareness of animals going to slaughter. And it's quite a big thing. It's really, I was really, really nervous the first one I ever went to, standing outside the slaughterhouse. Just driving there freaked me out. But I met some really nice people, but watching the animals, knowing that they're going to be killed within the next half an hour, and seeing how frightened they were when they turned up to the slaughterhouse was had a major impact on me, and I still do it from time to time. It can affect your mental health if you're not too careful. So I've actually become quite numb to it in a way. You know, I can go there and not be quite as freaked out as I used to be. It's still obviously very horrible, but you can't operate if you take it to your soul too much. But I still do it just to keep the fire stoked, if you know what I mean. And so, you know, it's not a diet. Veganism, for me anyway, it's not a diet. It's more of a philosophical way of living. And I love this one in the middle. I want more people to understand how unnecessary it is to kill trillions of animals yearly for our food and consumption, which is fueled by the same thinking that allows humans to discriminate and oppress each other. So I'm thinking, you know, if children could be taught that this is wrong, and obviously children are taught that this is natural and normal, and if they could be taught the opposite, that it's wrong to kill anything, then I think the world stands a better chance of ironing out, not all of the problems. Obviously it's human nature to have conflict from time to time, but it would certainly cut down on the amount of aggression, I think, that there is in the world. And so then I started looking at the amount, or from the environmental point of view, trying to think of how can I be a better activist, because I've met some amazing activists who commit their whole life to being vegan, and they have to have a revenue source from all the social media and everything they put out and donations. But I didn't want to change I just wanted to be a garden designer, but spread the word. And then when I made the connection between the environment and animal agriculture, how bad animal agriculture is for the environment, I thought, oh my God, it's like it's all about plants here. Animal agriculture affects the world in so many negative ways. So all these issues can be mitigated by taking up a plant-based diet, and that was a bigger shock to me as anything else. And so I thought, okay, yep, I'll write a book, and basically a plant-based lifestyle is the easiest and most effective way of reducing your impact on the planet. Yes, I thought it's all about plants, and I thought, oh, this is brilliant, because all my mates, they're all going to love this. They're going to immediately go vegan. I put this all into a book, and did they? So there you go. That's the book in a nutshell. It was a revelation. I mean, to be quite honest, it's the worst part of my life, but it's also the best part of my life. It's enriched my life in so many ways. The fact that not everyone can see it. I'm really impatient. I want things to happen yesterday, and so it's always gnawing at me and trying to think of different ways to raise awareness. But I've sort of come to the conclusion that, you know, it's not going to happen in my lifetime. But the only way to make this world better on all sorts of levels is to kick animal agriculture into touch and adopt a plant-based diet. So far away.
Talk about anything else? Exactly. There we go. Yeah. Get on. I mean, the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about, I mean, obviously, everything that you say is in this book, and it's all very clear. And when I first started reading it, I thought it's a really personal book. Everything in that first.
That disturbed you, didn't it?
I don't know if you guys have.
Humaira used to work. She used to be my assistant years ago.
Well, there's a story about you being in your Y fronts and jumping into the Thames to save a pigeon. And I was like, I don't know.
Too much detail.
Did you need to fit this on the book? And so there was things like that, but anyway, so it was really personal. It felt like you were writing it almost like therapy at one point, but that may be just me.
It was really trying to make it. I wanted to do it in a slightly light-hearted way, but also a very, very personal way, just so people could relate to me. Because I used to eat meat and dairy. I mean, I used to eat dairy up to the age of 56. You know, there's all sorts of things. I got varicose veins. I could tell you about my varicose veins. You know, and the revelation for me from a health point of view was staggering. It's like, you know, it's all scientifically proven that animals, you know, saturated fat from animals gives you heart disease, gives you cancer, gives you diabetes. And I had a hospital experience recently where, you know, they bring you the menu. There's only one vegan option on the whole thing. Everything else is meat and dairy. And I can't believe it. And you can save billions and billions of pounds for the national health just on food alone.
They're not joining up those dots
No.
in any way. kind of what
They are starting to, but it's taking ages. It's because the whole world is sort of bought into this idea. They've all been taught. You can't blame them. They've all been taught that this is the right way by killing animals. So it's very difficult for people to change.
And so the kind of question I was thinking about was because you know all of these things, and I was thinking about how, how long did it take to write this book?
On and off for about a year.
So a whole year you're looking at thinking about yourself, thinking about what's happening, looking at all these facts. And I was just thinking about how difficult it was to maybe write this book at times, or was it all right because you were working towards something?
No, it was good. I enjoyed the process. I'm not a very fast thinker or writer, so it probably took longer than it should have done. And I don't know, did you read the footnotes? Because the footnotes are actually more interesting. The footnotes actually substantiate a lot of the sort of claims backed up. And they didn't put the footnotes in with the text. They put it at the back, which is always a pain because I never read footnotes. But it was fine. I think it was harder for my wife, Christine, who drew... She did the illustrations for the book, and the illustrations are of animals that I've seen and taken pictures of minutes before they go to slaughter. So she had to, and she's much more sensitive than I am. So I come home in the evening, and she was just drained. You could see it. She'd been crying, and she'd been studying these poor animals. But I felt it was important to sort of bear witness to that, and she wanted to do it, even though it was hard for her to do it. So she's the one that suffered, poor thing.
I love it that you always bring up Christine. Yeah, that's interesting. But also just how have we ended up here? Because you're saying that we all know these things, the NHS knows these things, all these things about health. I mean, I have my own ideas. We talk about this a lot, like why are we here in this particular situation? What do you...
Well, first of all, we've all been brought up to think it's natural, normal and necessary. And then there is so much money invested in... It really does come down to money, a lot of it. And sadly, I think the vegan movement is only going to make huge strides if, the plant-based industry actually makes a lot of money for a lot of people, and they can see the value in it. So I think, the combination of those two things, but the money really does come.
It's definitely working that way though, right? Because I remember, Darryl, you were saying that, how long have you been a vegan, and what was it like when you first started? I don't know why I'm interviewing you now, pal.
Yeah, 28 years or so.
Yeah.
And 10 years before that I was a vegetarian. So yeah, it was really difficult back then. It was you couldn't go out and eat much. There wasn't a lot around. So it's changed incredibly. Yeah, I was just saying, so when I was first a vegan 28 years ago, it was extremely difficult to go out and eat and things like that. It's changed a lot in the past 5 years even. So yeah, there has been a huge change, and a lot of that is an economic change as well. We're seeing going on. We're seeing plant-based lifestyles being adapted, supermarkets adopting all of these things because, like we say, it's about money. They can make money from it, so they'll put them on the shelves. And that's, it's happened with, really rapidly recently. But obviously, the book is very personal in what you're talking about, but it's also got a bigger picture as well. So you're looking at the effects, and you've got a lot of information and facts and figures in there about the effect on the environment and of the meat and dairy industries. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yes, who was I? I spoke to a woman called Dr. Helen Harwood, and she's done various studies. I think she did studies with Joseph. Oh, hang on. Oh, I'm going to get muddled up now. I should have brought some notes.
Is she in here?
She is in there, yeah.
I'll find her.
Okay. But she works for, she's from Yale, and she works for Chatham House, and they do a lot of studies on the amount of land that is necessary for animal agriculture and how much would be needed for a plant-based world. And it's something like 75% of, we could save 75% of land if we switched to a plant-based diet, which is unbelievable. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but it should be a major driver for governments to actually think about. And I've been trying to I've met a couple of people who have got sort of inroads into number 10, and I would be hopeless at that, but I'm trying to get Helen and other people to get a shoe in there just so they can start talking about this and seeing how policies can be changed. It's going to be hard work, but the evidence is all there. So it's whether or not, because any political party at this coming election, if they suddenly started saying, right, we're going to make everyone go vegan, they're just not going to get any votes at all. So it's a game. It's going to be a long, long, hard slog. And but there is evidence, and there's people like Ian Tolhurst, who I met actually when I wasn't vegan. This is his book, Growing Green. I mean, this is like the veganic Bible. Veganic means organic, but not using any animal inputs when you're gardening or growing food. And I met him, many, many years ago, and he's now been growing veganically, i.e. without animal inputs, for the last 36 years, I think. And I think they sell something like 400 boxes a week or something like that. Veg boxes, and he's got a place in the Hardwick estate near Reading, and he really has the template, and I think he travels the world over. I mean, you can't get him to talk anyway. He's just so busy. He's just incredible. So that, so now there is also. I mean, I've got a load of other slides, but it's probably best if we just talk rather than showing the slides. There's something called the Vegan Organic Network, and it's a great resource they're starting to join introduce people and build up a network of veganic farmers around the country and around the world. So that's really worth checking out if you can. And other things in terms of the environment, the amount of deforestation that is going on is just off the charts. So is the marine destruction makes you cry. So there's so many issues on the environment, which is just, and also lately, which is something I didn't know at all. It's a complete revelation to me. It's like it took me back to when I first became vegan. I thought it was almost like the same emotions coming up. Is salmon farming in Scotland? We stayed in Scotland last summer for 2 weeks, and we were looking out over the loch, and there are these salmon farms. I had no idea the amount of pollution. The amount of pollution that comes over out of those these fish farms is unbelievable. It's equivalent to, like, I don't know, a major town going into these lochs. So all the wild fish going through are getting infected with lice. I mean, all the fish in these farms are infected with lice and all sorts of other stuff. There's chemicals going into the water. It is off the charts horrible. Even if I went back to eating meat and fish, I would not touch Scottish salmon with a barge pole, literally. So there's some really interesting activists. But bizarrely, the activists that are really putting their lives at risk, some of them going out, diving into the sea, taking all this footage, they hardly get any traction on social media, even in the vegan industry. And this is like this baffles me beyond belief. They're literally, one of them got beaten up, another one almost got his boat rammed. By salmon farmers, yeah. And DEFRA know all about. They've exposed all this stuff, and it's all RSPCA assured, which is amazing. It's just baffling.
So why do you think they don't get as much press in like the vegan?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think there's humans are complicated creatures, aren't we? We even when we're all on the same side, we argue. And I think what happens is that because of social media, and a lot of people enjoy the buzz of social media and getting likes and all that, I think there are some groups and charities, when it comes down to charities, they're all trying to get the money to do their work. I think there's an element of competition and jealousy between certain groups, which, again, just freaks me out. You just sort of get people's heads together and bash them together.
There's no hope for us.
I used to tell Humaira this when she used to work for me. I said, we're all going to die. We're all going to end in tears. Now she believes me, maybe.
Yeah, but we might as well have a good time while we're here.
We can go down shouting, yeah.
Well, I mean, can I just ask you a question about, so you're not in Tolhurst, we know that, but you do have an allotment and you run it all veganically.
Yeah.
So what are the things that you do that are easy, that you've found really useful, and like maybe the yields are better, or I don't know?
Yeah. Okay, well, our best year was COVID year, or year and a half, when we had a lot of time down there, because you need a lot of time to be really properly productive. I mean, this year I've had all sorts of different issues, and we're hopeless. So the production there is pretty much nil, apart from some perennial crops, fruit and stuff. But while we in that year, first of all veganic principles don't allow you to use any animal fertilizer, or anything derived from an animal. So you make your own plant-based compost, and that is the best. That is the 100% the best way of fertilizing your soil, because it's just plants. It's just rotted down plants. When plants are eaten and taken in by a creature and then pooed out the other end, that's according to Ian Tolhurst, it's in his book, it's a net loss because it's gone through the digestive tract, and so a lot of nutrients are removed. So the problem is making enough of it for yourself, and even on a small scale, it's very difficult. You have to really be on the case all the time. We haven't thrown a scrap of vegetable waste from our kitchen for the last 15 years or so. And hello, come in, sit down. You're welcome, that's fine. So that is, without a doubt, the hardest thing. But there are also things you can do, like green manure. Green manure is a really good way of introducing nutrients to the soil. Ian Tolhurst advocates, especially on a larger scale, he advocates for wood chip, which is something I really haven't got my head around completely at the moment in terms of how to use it on a small scale. But we did actually use wood chips on our paths for many years, and then I noticed that it was all sort of decomposed into this lovely black, lovely compost, and we used that. So he uses something called ramial wood chip, which is branch wood that is no bigger than 7 centimeters, I think, in diameter. And when that's chipped, it has a higher nitrogen content than carbon. The nitrogen content is better than the bigger, sort of fatter, higher carbon timber. So if you get hold of that, and that's the other difficult thing, is finding a tree surgeon who you can trust, so you know the provenance of that wood chip, and it hasn't been sprayed with all sorts of nasty stuff. So he's got a deal with a local tree surgeon who supplies him with all this stuff, and it's all within the locality. And he makes these great big long windrows, which are like piled up to about 1.5 meters just of wood chip, and then they turn it once or twice a year, and then it rots down to this beautiful stuff. And then beyond that, he's even, I think, I'm right in saying this because I went on one of his courses, is that they can even spread freshly chipped wood chip over the whole of the field. And I thought this was going to be like a compost layer, like a couple of inches thick. It was literally bits. You could see grass and crops, weeds growing in between. So it's a really bare minimal amount of wood chip, and that was enough to fertilise this field. It's quite mind-blowing. But with all this veganic growing, you have to be really organised. And I'm the most disorganised person, she'll vouch for it, in the world. So if you're organised and you're passionate about it, organic growing is really the way to go.
So that's something quite practical, but obviously you're a garden designer. So how has all of this affected your work?
Yeah, it's that was it. That was quite an interesting moment when you suddenly realise, as a garden designer, you're asking for all these holes to be dug and trees to be knocked down and walls to be rebuilt, and suddenly you're aware that every single action you do is having a knock-on effect to someone else. Someone who's living there, someone who's nesting there, someone who's burrowing there. And that's been quite a hard thing. I still haven't quite resolved. I haven't resolved that in my mind, but I mean, there's probably a couple of ways of looking at it. One is you just walk away and don't do it anymore, or you take on the responsibility of making sure that if you are going to be involved in something, you do it to the best of your ability, and you just don't go in there all guns blazing, tearing everything out. You give it some thought and try and make some decisions that are going to be less harmful during the whole process. I mean, I'm sure you probably find the same. I mean, it's, there's a lot of conflict in my mind about, you feel conflicted most of the time. But the thing is, if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it, and they may do it a lot worse. I mean, they may do it better, but I think it really does make you think. And when when I'm gardening down at the allotment, it's like you're really going carefully don't ever employ a vegan gardener on an hourly rate. That's for sure. Get a fixed price.
No, I'm not going to do an hourly rate, Cleve. It's not going to happen.
So what are some of the decisions you have made on recent projects, to do or not to do, more importantly?
Yeah, I've got a couple. There's a couple of projects been two or three projects, but there's one I've been involved in the long term, which is very difficult to change. We've made some major infrastructure changes and lots of earth moving, lots of walls being built, and that has been difficult to change because it's been so embedded in the whole overall scheme and planning and everything. I've got virtually no control. I'm sort of trying to...
Is it like a runaway train? It
is a little bit of a runaway train, but we're sort of towards the end of it, so it's almost like we've done everything bad that we need to do. So that's, I don't have sleepless nights over it, but I just, I keep thinking, what would I have done differently? Which is tricky, but also
that's the next book. What would you have done differently?
Yeah. But it's been quite interesting because the client isn't vegan at all and probably never will be. But I think some of what we don't actually have big intense conversation about it. We sort of have a moment every so often. If something happens to me, he said, "Well, you should eat more meat." But I think some of the things I've been talking about over the years may have a chance of filtering through. I don't know. But on the other hand, I've got another job where we've got vegan clients, vegan couple, and it's happy days because it's more along the lines of what John Little's doing with using waste products from within the site itself. So that waste stream isn't wasted. You sort of use whatever you can. So a building has been knocked down. There's been excavation for the building, and all the excavation for the building. Basically, it's an equestrian centre that's been turned over into a building for the client, and then whatever we've got left outside is going to be made into similar to what they're doing at NEP. Where they've got the mounds and the I don't know how you describe. How do we describe NEP? It's not really a meadow, is it? It's like it's a wall garden. A wall garden, and they've built. They've done undulations, varying types of habitat, two sort of distinct types of planting. One by James Hitchmo, one by Tom Stewart Smith, and Charlie Harper is the head gardener there, doing wonderful things. So it's sort of based along those sort of lines. But the interesting thing is that we've had real battle with the planning department at the moment, trying to allow us to do it, because we've dug up a horse manege, which is like a place where they did all their equestrian events, and it was just like that rubber sort of mulch. All that's come out, and so the council want us to replace it just with grass, just literally grass. And they're really digging their heels in, and we want to do something that's got huge range of biodiversity, and that's the sole intention of the client, is to bring as many insects in as possible, and the client and the council just can't see it. Oh my God!
Again, we're back to that point of joining up the dots, right? So how do they not understand? I mean, it's planning, so they must have to go through this time and time again. They've got quotas and things that they have to do for the government, saying, biodiversity, net gain, and all these other things.
Yeah.
So how do they not understand?
I don't know. Because I'm so impatient, I'm stepping back quietly, and the architect's dealing with it because he's much more calm.
And have you found that so you've got this one couple who are vegan who've come to you. What about the rest of your clientele? Are more people coming to you because of your veganism, or?
I've got one other vegan client, which I haven't even started on yet, but No, so that I've only had 2, but I mean that's better than none.
Yeah, it's definitely better.
So hopefully, when those are done, it might generate some more work in that area. But I'm not really, obviously it'd be lovely to get vegan clients, but I still work for anyone, but within reason, as long as they don't fox hunt.
Yeah, fair enough.
Obviously, a lot of these things you're doing are because you're vegan, because your perspective on everything. But there are obviously other people doing these things about biodiversity, trying to increase and that sort of thing, who aren't vegan. So how can you use that as a starting point for conversations about, our lighter approaches, our approaches to the rest of the world, multi-species justice, etc.?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting when people have they're sort of quite active in terms of biodiversity loss and species extinction and Just Stop Oil. I mean, Just Stop Oil is actually quite an interesting one because I've met quite a few people who are Just Stop Oil activists, but they still eat meat. It's like, what? It's like really completely baffling because even if we gave up, or even if oil just disappeared and we, from tomorrow it all went and we were all clean energy, we'd still exceed our climate emissions targets of 1.5 just from animal agriculture alone. So how you can be an environmentalist and actually still eat meat is still beyond me.
So how do we have those conversations then?
Yeah, and it's quite difficult because I'm not very good at doing those because I don't really like confrontation, and people do get very uptight, especially when their choices are being challenged. So there's that. But yeah, the biodiversity thing, I've seen so much in the Instagram feeds about biodiversity this, biodiversity that, we must save this, that and the other. But I won't give up my meat. It's like, how do we get through to these people? I don't know. If anyone's got any clues.
Well, that's the same thing with NEP, isn't it? Because, whilst they're doing all these things about biodiversity, they are rearing meat animals to sell as meat as well. So it's cognitive dissonance, isn't it?
Yeah, that's quite a tough one. Because I went to see Charlie and had a tour around the garden, and it was quite difficult to actually go there knowing that all that other stuff's going on behind the scenes. So, but hopefully, maybe things will improve as it goes on. Because I know a lot of people. I get a lot of messages from other garden designers who aren't always vegan, but they sort of are starting to think along those lines. And I get a lot of messages from vegan gardeners who like the idea of it, but don't want to actually speak out about it. And I understand that because when I started speaking out about it, it was quite an interesting experience. A lot of my friends ran for cover, and my family. But fortunately, I've got my wife's side of the family, a really strong vegan camp. So I felt like I had backup. But in the gardening world, I think everyone, apart from Darryl and a couple of others, I sort of suddenly felt deserted. It's better now, but it's still quite a contentious subject. And I understand why people are nervous about speaking out about it. But I'm too old and grumpy to worry about it now.
But I do think you've made headway though, because even at the RHS for years and years there was no vegan food, and the last couple of years they've had vegan, but whatever it is, they've had vegan outlets that you can go and buy food from. So, things are changing a little bit, are they?
They're changing.
That's such a sad sign.
Well, last year at Chelsea, we did a garden for Centrepoint, and one of the first things I thought about, oh God, we're going to have to have contractors having lunch, their bacon sandwiches and stuff. So right from the start, I had a meeting with the contractors. I said, right, look, we've got a healthy budget, and I'm happy to devote part of it to supplying you all vegan lunches every single day. How about it? And I'm thinking, oh no, I'm not going to have that. They all said, fantastic, yes, we'll do that. And it was brilliant. It was brilliant, wasn't it?
It was the best
and
Chelsea I've ever had.
So there's that. And then also, I've been lobbying the RHS for many years about going plant-based at their shows. It's all about plants. Here's the strapline. And so just before the show opened, we'd been building the show for 3 weeks. Just before the show opened, someone said, oh, did you know the RHS have got a plant-based restaurant? I said, they didn't even, because I said to them, if you do it, don't tell anyone, just do it. because if you tell anyone, everyone's going to be up in arms. So they didn't even tell me they were going to do it.
And you were the one who told them to do it.
Then I couldn't even find it.
But this year, oh, you didn't see it last year?
No,
Oh, okay.
you told me that,
And it was great. And I went there 2 or 3 times, and each time it was full. It was fine. But I found out earlier, a few weeks ago, that for this Chelsea, that they weren't going to do it this year because the other one didn't make enough money. I thought, oh my God, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And it boils down to money. So we come back to that thing, money.
But I did a show gun for the RHS this year, and they held a couple of events on there, and all the canapes, everything was vegan. So the message is getting through.
Yeah, that's right. And so I was helping Project Giving Back recently, and I've been helping Horatio's Garden. So all their canapes at their events are vegan now. So it is filtering through. So, you know, it's me being impatient again. It is working, but just not at the pace that I always imagined it might be.
And before, when we were talking about places like NEP, so, and it has that, they have all their animal agriculture there. Apart from Ian Tolhurst, where are there good examples maybe of vegan gardens that we could maybe go and visit? Anyone that does it organic, you're going to have to do that too.
I don't know.
So I think that's the key,
Yeah.
right? So to have
There are some places. If you go to the Vegan Organic Network, they'll have places. There's a farm in Wiltshire, I think. I can't remember the name of it, but there are places that you might be able to visit. There might even be some stock-free farms that you'd be able to visit. I know Ian Tolhurst does have open days down there. That's really educational. But yes, a list of gardens would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit...
No, that's okay. And I was just also thinking about, you know, as garden designers or landscape designers, when we're trying to be more mindful about, you know, materials, plants, whatever. Apart from that, the Vegan Organic sort of network, I mean, are there any particular nurseries or any places that you kind of buy things from that are... I know of one vegan nursery, which is Grow Wild in Scotland.
That's right, yeah.
You know, if there were more that you were aware of.
No, I don't. I'm not that aware. Are you?
Yeah.
Are you, Darryl?
No.
No, it's difficult, isn't it?
So if anybody knows of some, let us know.
Yeah,
You know, it'd be
please.
really interesting to be able to build more of a network there so that we could, if we wanted to be more mindful about these things, that we
Yeah.
could go and find those places that supply
Yeah.
all the best stuff that we could buy. And I was just going to say about this. So the book, it says, the Garden of Vegan, how plants can save the animals, the planet and our health. Then I was thinking, should they? Should plants help us? Sorry. So, you know, is that what we're looking for now? Is that
Well,
more
I
of a
mean-
philosophical question now?
I mean, well, just being aware that there is a massive drive now, isn't there, that nature actually supports us. I mean, most people, a lot of people are. I mean, I'll give you an example. We've got a garden at home which was lovely for quite a long time. It had ivy on all the walls and honeysuckle and jasmine, and it was holding the fence up for about 40 years. And then suddenly one crucial bit or 2, 3 crucial bits of fence broke, and everything just collapsed under its own weight. And it coincided with me getting some spare wood from Chelsea from a show garden that we did, and for whatever reason I decided to change it, and we had this new fence. Reluctantly got rid of the ivy, and our neighbours were delighted because they're not very interested in nature. And immediately we noticed the shortfall in insects. You know, you'd open the window, normally you get moths and flies and everything coming in. The summer after we put this fence up, not even one moth coming in. And it's like, oh God, what have we done? So there's that. And then our neighbour said, oh my God, we've got Japanese knotweed. We've got Japanese knotweed. I can't believe it. They just moved in. It's like, they've sold us a house with Japanese knotweed. Get Cleve. And it's like, so I was dragged over there, and I looked and said, oh no, it's okay. It's bindweed. He went, bindweed? I said, yeah, it's fine. It's nothing to worry about. And we just got talking about garden. I said, you don't have to worry about weeds. You know, some of them are good for the planet, good for insects. And he said, you actually like nature, don't you? I was like, oh my God. But I think, that aside, I think there is a general drive. You know, look at the popularity of Springwatch, which I think is brilliant. People are starting to connect Whether or not they all know that we need nature to survive is another matter, but there is a general sort of drive or understanding that if we don't reforge this link with nature, then we're lost, basically.
Yeah, and it's a shame that
Especially in terms of insects. I mean, without insects, we're really stuck. You know, and you know, you can imagine the food shortages and all sorts of things coming our way if bee populations and other pollinator populations plummet as they are or continue to plummet.
I was on Instagram and I was looking at one of my garden designer friends, and she was saying that she had a particular plant in her garden and the neighbours had asked her to cut it down because there were too many bees. And she was kind of devastated by this. She was like, well, what? I don't understand. What do you mean? Because that's, you know, they pollinate everything. So, and that there is such a big disconnect, I think, between a lot of people. You know, they go from their houses to a train, to an office, back into the train, back to their house. So they almost don't have any connection. I mean, how do we, all of this stuff is about our connection to net and connections between us, the earth, everything else here, and the fact that we are part of nature. So how do you think we can connect? We are all there. There's a lot of other people who aren't. Is there a way that we can do that? It's another big question. I'm sorry. I want to save the world. Yeah.
Well, events like this obviously do a lot of good. Thanks, Sal, for organising all this. This is brilliant. Gosh, I don't know. I mean, there are people like, who are the Hackney boys? Wild City Studio. They're doing some great work. I don't know. I don't have all the answers.
Yeah. It's tricky though, because those are the kinds of things.
But what
We don't know ourselves.
I like the idea of these sort of events where you're sort of looking into how we can green up cities. I mean, that's a great place to start, especially as so many more people are going to be living in cities going forward. And there's so much more that can be done.
Yeah, we need to do more of the national park city stuff and get more rangers. Yes, we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.